Good day, learners. You are welcome to study session 5, titled Centralization and Decentralization. In study session 4, we discuss hierarchy, unity of command, chain of command, as well as span of control. But today, like I said earlier, the focus of discussion will be on centralization and decentralization. At the end of the session, you should be able to explain what is meant by centralization and equally discuss its advantages and disadvantages. You should be also to explain what is meant by decentralization and equally discuss its advantages and disadvantages. Centralization. Centralization refers to a situation whereby the activities in an organization are placed under a single authority. It also means the action or the process of bringing all activities together in one place. In a centralized organization, the field agencies remain ordinarily executing and implementing tools because they lack the power to act based on their initiatives. What are the advantages of a centralized system of administration? Number one, it is cost effective. The management spends less on office and administrative expenses. Two, in a centralized administrative system, there's room for proper coordination because instructions and directives emanate from one source. Three, centralization enhances the quality of work because uniform standards and instructions are given to subordinates. Three, centralization brings about uniformity of actions. Five, centralization helps top management to clearly define the vision of the organization. Six, it enhances the proper coordination of all activities within the organization. Despite the advantages of centralization, there are some disadvantages. They are: one, centralized administrative system may slow down the pace of work in large organizations. It may slow down the pace of work in large organizations. Centralization may not cope with emergency situation in big organizations because we have to wait for instruction and directives from the headquarters. Three, it reduces scope for specialization as subordinates are not encouraged to use their initiatives. Four, lack of initiative may lead to apathy and alienation in the organization. Employees may not be willing to use their discretion because they are always receiving instructions from the headquarters. Five, it is difficult for a centralized organization to adapt to change. They have to wait a long time before doing that. They have to seek approval from subordinates. Six, top management staff are usually loaded with a lot of responsibilities since directives emanate from one source. Top management, they are usually loaded with a lot of responsibility. There will be a lot of pressure on them. Seven, it may lead to high-handedness because power is concentrated in few hands. They may tend to be autocratic. Eight, it encourages communication system which gives little room for feedback from subordinates. It encourages communications system that gives little room for feedback from subordinates. Let's go to decentralized administrative system. An organization is said to be decentralized if authority to make decisions is entrusted to managers at the lower leaders of the organizational hierarchy. Factors such as the size of the organization, the degree of interaction between members, management philosophy, and the personality of the members determine the degree of decentralization, though it is usually advisable for large organizations to decentralize its activities. What are the advantages of decentralization? Number one, decentralization reduces the workload of top management. It reduces the workload of top management because subordinates are given some powers to act. Two, as powers and duties are dispersed, the junior members of the organization have the opportunities to learn from their superiors. They are given, they can use their initiative at times. That one will enable them to learn from their superiors. Three, decentralization promotes greater participation in the decision-making process in the organization. And when members of staff are given the opportunity to take part in the decision-making process. They have a sense of belonging and commitment to the organization, which may increase their productivity and output. 4, decentralization promotes effective supervision because those charged with responsibilities are so designated. Superiors can easily supervise their subordinates because they know specific assignments that have been given to such people. Then what are the disadvantages of decentralization? 1, decentralization may create situations and difficulties for proper coordination because different units work independently, because duties are dispersed. To coordinate will be a problem. So as a matter of fact, for decentralization to succeed, there must be proper coordination. 2, it is expensive because it involves heavy overhead expenses. We have duplication of offices and personnel. 3, decentralization, like I said earlier on, is associated with duplication of offices and personnel. The headquarters will have the offices, some offices and personnel, and those at the field will also have the same offices and personnel. To maintain these personnel and offices, the maintenance requires huge amount of money. 4, the existence of decentralized system to a large extent depends on the existence of competent and qualified persons to handle specific responsibilities. For decentralization to work, you must have competent and qualified persons that will handle specific responsibilities. Learners, you have learned about centralized and decentralized administrative systems in this study session. To cap it all, in a centralized administrative system, activities in an organization are placed under a single authority. The other agencies exist at the mercy of the parent agencies at the headquarters. In terms of decentralization, authority to make decisions is entrusted to personnel at the lower level also, not concentrated in a single hand. There is element of dispersion of activities. And like we said earlier, the size of the organization, the degree of interactions between members, the philosophy of the management team, and the personalities of members usually determine the degree of decentralization. And it is not advisable for large organizations to centralize its administrative activities, because in such a situation, management will be too far away from staff and subordinates will be detached from the organization because they are not given the opportunity to use their discretion. Thank you for listening. We meet at the next study session. Thank you.